I'm curious, and I don't know if you've had any experiences with psychedelics.
I
Um,
have, yeah.
yeah,
Am
so
I allowed to say that? I think so.
it's up to you.
Yeah,
My podcast, you can say whatever. It's up. I don't know how. It seems like the way
yeah.
your life is designed, you could kind of say it.
Say whatever I want. Yeah,
Yeah, kind of.
yeah.
I don't think you're gonna get in trouble.
I
But
would just say I would like to make a plug then for psychedelics because I don't. It's something that I've done in phases, but just and actually after a lot of deep meditation practice, and I found particularly mushrooms to be basically like knocked out, depression that had been coming back for my whole life, and really have just been one of the most meaningful things I've done other than meditation has actually been psychedelics. So anyway, I think that for the right person at the right time, that can be really useful. But sorry, what was your question?
no, no, I'm actually really curious about what you just said. Is I believe you said you've already been meditating for a while, and
Yeah,
then you used mushrooms, and it
yeah,
actually helped kind of dissolve this pattern of depression.
yep, yep. It did.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering how what may have been what happens when you ingest mushrooms, how what's happening there is different than meditating because I for me there's a lot of similarities
Yes.
and like the fact like I would even say the reason that I got so deep into meditation and Dharma is actually because of my
Mm,
psychedelic experiences. And I don't think that this is not like a rare case. There's a
yeah.
lot of teachers, your Ram Dasses, your Shinzen Youngs, like plenty of teachers that have had these psychedelic experiences and then they go and pursue meditation.
Mm,
Um, yeah, and there's a lot of ways to think about psychedelics, and I find that the more nuanced that we can be about this topic, the more gold there is because it could be kind of this black or white. Like either back in the day, it was like psychedelics were like it'll make you lose your mind, you'll go crazy, and now
mm.
it's kind of become like well, it's like a magic pill. You take psychedelics and all your problems are over. Um, but there's definitely some nuance there.
Mm,
But yeah, I'm just so curious of like how
mm.
where meditation can do something that psychedelics can, and where can psychedelics do something that meditation can't.
Yeah, I'm happy to be talking about this. There's, you know, yeah, just to be very clear, I'm not including this in the teaching that I'm doing. It's not a part of that. Just to be clear, um, this has been my own exploration, and I think that there is a lot of overlap. I mean, I haven't explored a lot of different substances, mostly just the mushrooms, and I found that for me, I've always done it in a very contemplative space. Actually, almost always with, not always, almost always with somebody else who I was like a close friend, which was really interesting as well because it was, and I think because of that, it was noticing that, as Ramdas puts it, it's like going from the head to the heart. And I think that understanding that opens up through meditation is more in the realm of non-clinging to whatever's arising. But you could be non-clinging to, and in fact, the goal is actually to not be preferential, just be non-clinging to what is arising and find the flexibility of mind to not be grasping after different states. But just because there's not grasping after different states doesn't mean we don't still have the conditioned world. And, we can choose to pay attention to many, as you know, this is obvious, choose to pay attention to many different things. Some are more wholesome, some are less wholesome. They have different effects. It's like digesting different food. Um, and so what I found is with the psychedelics is it pretty reliably forced a confrontation, which is quite similar to meditation in a way. There's something about that substance that like almost like makes the heart be really ruthlessly honest and just kind of digest what's undigested, kind of become undistracted and digest what's undigested, and can really help to like speed up and ensure the process, at least for a period of time, of really kind of really being open to what's coming up and kind of loosening up the maybe habitual resistances or views or stances or belief systems. So it can give a nice taste of something that's very similar to meditation. But I think also on a conditioned level, it really is a transient experience, which can give view, and it may be different every time, into, I would say, just like the more the realm of spirit and the realm of heart, which can be really useful for us. Just and for me, that's what was so useful to me. It's like there's, and still is useful at times, because there's just a strong propensity to be in the busyness of life and more in a mental realm. And I found that for me, the mushrooms just help to go from the head to the heart, which is a nourishing food. It's a nourishing perspective. I think probably just even for our particular conditioning, humans in general, but also this time and place in the modern world. I remember I was watching a year ago or something, I took some mushrooms and I had a YouTube video of I think it was a conversation between like Sam Harris and Steven Pinker. And I was really into it. I'd been watching for like an hour and 15 minutes. And as the mushrooms kicked in, I was just like, ugh, like I closed the computer screen. Like I can't even like watch this. It's just such a mental realm. And I went and laid down in the moss and I was just like feeling the mossness of the moss. And that's a very nourishing perspective.
Yeah, I was gonna say that that's the wrong conversation to be watching on mushrooms.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite go, but yeah, I've been in this exploration myself, and yeah, like I mean, psychedelics have been profound for me, and I feel like I want to say maybe it was like 5 years that I was kind of using them, and I was always, I mean, there has been times where I use them more recreationally, but once I kind of started to understand how they worked, I was like, okay, there's definitely something about that's really important of how you use it and the intention and the environment that you're doing it in. So I use them in a very conscious way. And typically I would be like every maybe 6 months or something like that. It wouldn't be like every week I'm using them. But it's been now about, I want to say about 2.5 years since the last time I've used psychedelics. And I remember the last trip I had, I took quite a big took like 5 grams of mushrooms. And yeah, it was pretty intense experience. Maybe not as intense as my experiences with 5-MeO DMT.
Oh,
Yeah. But
I've heard about that.
Yeah, but maybe it was. I don't know, because I remember having that experience and thinking like, whoa, this might compare with the 5-MeO. But yeah, I guess there was just something where I felt like, okay, now let's take a break, because you've used them kind of consistently for 5 years, and and then in the lineage that I've been working with, the teacher is Dan Brown. He's passed away recently, but this is the Mahamudra, and he's a powerful practitioner who's taught for a long time and very entrenched in these teachings. And the question of psychedelics has come up during like his online retreats or during some of the meetings with him. And he would say like, okay, if you want to use psychedelics, it's fine, but there's always the risk that you get attached to a state. And I heard you say that too, like grasping onto a state. Yeah. And I think as I sat longer with not using them, I was like, wow, I think there really is something that's grasping and clinging to the state, particularly the 5-MeO experiences, because these are completely ego dissolving, like non-dual, just like, to me, it's like, oh, this is a God experience. Like this is it. And so I think there was this clinging for me that I had to kind of see. Like, I think there was also something about like doing it and like, okay, I'm going to go and overcome something, right? Because for me, there's always immense fear before using psychedelics. I mean,
me too.
Yeah. And to me, I don't see how there can't be that, but I've spoken to people who are like, oh, it's such a treat. Every time I do 5-MeO DMT, it's a treat. Right. I'm like, really? I'm like, because I'm over here sweating, shaking, like, but yeah, there's just something like, there was just something of like facing that fear. It's almost like challenging myself. And then I'm like, oh, every single time I feel like I have to challenge myself, like as if there's something to prove. And then also there's something, it's almost like a reset, it's like I will go and do that and there's a reset. And recently that's like, it's been kind of coming back up. I'm like, I haven't done it for a while. I'm actually curious what would happen if I did do it. So it's just interesting for me to see this. But I have been sensing like, oh, like, why do I feel like I need to do it again? Like there is this like, like why do I need it? Like it's pointing to something that's here right now.
Yes.
And it's like,
Yes.
what is it in me that feels that I need
Mm.
that to open to it
Yeah.
more?
Nice. I mean, it's again, it's that rich koan between, like similar to going on retreat when it's already here and now. Why would you go on retreat? There's that wisdom understanding, but then also, as I was saying, like there can be things that just bubble up in that setting. There's something about the this is, I mean, it's like, as people, this has been pointed out before, the spiritual life is paradoxical. And that was helpful when someone just once said that to me. It's paradoxical because it is this dance of form and emptiness. And we're opening to the wisdom, which we've been talking about, the wisdom of non clinging to whatever is arising. But when we're really doing that and it's not a view, we're maybe part of what I find is that there's part of me that has some doubt, and there's part of me that has some longing for some, or is interested, like, oh, if something interesting happens, like when that moss experience happened, just, I mean, that was a simple one, but it was just like, that felt so good. I mean, I was really there with the moss, and there was part of my mind that just felt like that's where it's at, and I have experiences like that on retreat as well, where it's just like, holy shit, like this meditation state is where it's at, really. um, but that, what I found is just that voice comes and goes, and it's not that helpful. I'm just saying there's no kind of there doesn't need to be a. I'm familiar with the conflict that can arise. The thought of like, is it about here and now, or is it about finding more nourishing states? But in reality, it just seems like the two work together. And if we're to really open to the wisdom, you really need to drop ideas about where it's going. You really need to open to now. And when you open to now, what happens, which is our life. This is our life. Our life. Our life keeps happening, and part of our life is like having different experiences and learning from them. That's why wisdom keeps growing. Wisdom is immediate, but if it's real wisdom, it actually keeps learning and growing and learning and growing. So there's this dynamic pivoting between nothing to gain, really nothing to gain, really nothing to get, and actually, because what is that is actually letting go of views of how it should be. That's beginner's mind, which Suzuki Roshi talked about. And in beginner's mind, he says there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. So we're looking for this. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, should I do mushrooms? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Well, it depends.
Or should I make a project? Yeah. Should I make a project out of, psychedelics and meditation in order to have that state all the time because I've really fixed around that being where it's at? Or can I just let this be a nourishing experience that comes and goes? And really, that from the meditative perspective, that is one of the main things we're learning, is that when we really see that everything comes and goes, that's part of what can see that is actually open to what doesn't come and go, which is the wisdom.